Hello and welcome to first discussion on TCN Google Hangout, and we're starting this hopefully a regular feature from now on, and we'll start today's discussion will be on Indian election, and today we have with us Riaz. Riaz, say hi.
Hello, salam.
So Riaz just came back from a tour of many districts of Uttar Pradesh. So he will be talking about his experience working, what's going on the ground, and hopefully we'll have more people join in soon, and then we can have some interesting discussion. So Riaz, if you can talk about which of the districts did you go, and what do you see?
I from Delhi went to Nagina, which is a block which is one of the constituencies in one of Western UP's district of Bijnor. So Nagina is one of the constituency in Bijnor. So I started my tour with Bijnor, and from Bijnor I moved to Muradabad, and from there to Bareilly, and then to Farrukhabad. Farrukhabad is the constituency of Salman Khurshid. And from there I came to Firozabad. Firozabad, as you might be knowing, is famous for this glass industry, especially bangles and all. From there, I came back to Delhi through Agra. So I was there briefly in Agra as well, and then I came to Delhi. I had planned to go to Mathura, but I had some work in Delhi as well, so I just came to Delhi.
Yeah. So.
They want to speak me about what I observed there.
So let's do that. What you saw there, and what's really happening on the ground. I mean, I visited some of these places, almost 3 weeks ago. The mood there was definitely, not of election. Maybe it was still early on. People weren't talking about election. In fact, the interesting thing what I observed was, all the TVs that I saw. Turn on was either watching movies or some songs and stuff, but not news at all. In fact, I was so surprised that even Aam Aadmi Party Kanpur, the thing was they were watching cricket instead of news. So that tells you how at least at that time 3 weeks ago, wasn't much of an interest in the election. So maybe things have changed now. So what do you see? Do you see that people are talking about election?
As I went there just 2 days, the last day of the campaign I was in Nagina, and on a day before election I was in Muradabad. On the day of election I was in Bareilly, and again Farrukhabad, election is on 24th, so I was there around 5-6 days earlier, and in most of these districts, I found people political discussion going on in buses, in train compartments at times, on stations, on platforms, at Chaiwala. Of course, not everywhere. The people were also, because it's IPL and we Indians are crazy about cricket. Besides Bollywood, so films and cricket are a staple. Of course, we cannot deny that. But people were discussing and they were following news. And I don't know, it also depends on the timing, because now we have 24-hour news channels, so maybe all the time people are not watching news, but they are, because the mood I found there was people seem to, I won't say they know everything correctly or whether they are wrong or right, but they seem to know so much. There is so much of information due to 24 hours of news, and we all know how our political parties, especially. Hello, Vinay.
Hey.
Hey, Vinay.
Hey.
So Vinay is joining us. He was in Jharkhand, until very recently. So I think we'll get some perspective of Jharkhand. But continue, Riaz.
Yeah, I will. I was Vinay. Just to brief you, I just returned from 4 districts of UP, which are Bijnor, Farrukhabad, Bareilly, Muradabad. Through Agra, I came back. So I was just talking about my experience there. So I was saying that because of last 2 years, how BJP, especially Modi's media, campaign has been going on, and we saw the difference there. Like people have so much of information, so like they're loaded with informations, whether right or wrong. So everyone is talking about so-called Gujarat model, and everyone like another interesting thing about BJP I found was if you, Kashiba, you might be aware that when we go to interiors in Bihar, UP, Jharkhand as well, I'm sure Vinay can tell us. People generally say like they have to vote for say RJD or they vote for JDU or Congress. So they generally in our like rural side they say Panjay ko vote diya, ya Tir ko diya, ya Lantern ko diya. They talk about symbols. Similarly for BJP they would use Phool ko diya or ya Kamal ko diya. This time uh, people are saying मोदी को दिया. Like those who are voting for BJP और किसको वोट करोगे, they would say Modi. They would just say Modi or like अब की बार मोदी सरकार, things like that. So these have in a way got embedded into people's mind and people's general
Can you
conversations.
repeat which districts did you vote?
I went to Bijnor. Bijnor, I went to one block which is Nagina. Then I went to Muradabad, and from Muradabad I went to Bareilly. From Bareilly I went to Farrukhabad. From Farrukhabad I went to Firozabad. Firozabad I went to Agra briefly for a few hours, and then I took a bus back to Delhi.
Okay, okay.
What I also found was that more than like, of course, there is so-called in these districts, they amongst BJP voters. I'm not saying it's everywhere, but amongst BJP voters, which are generally those upper caste Hindu vote, so they seem to be consolidated at the moment. Uh, they appeared consolidated at the moment, the BJP voters, and they were like in one voice saying "Ab ki baar Modi ki sarkar" yeah, or something like that. While other voters, whether Muslims or other backward voters, they seem to be divided and to me confused. Like Muslims seem to be the most confused voters in this region. And mind you, Muradabad especially, Muradabad, Bijnor, Bareilly, these are the districts which have Muslim almost in the majority or like 40%, 46%, like that. Farrukhabad has least. So among these districts, I mean. So these voters are like, they are confused because they say after Muzaffarnagar we can't vote for SP, but and they cannot trust Mayawati enough because the thing I heard there was Mayawati went with BJP. She allied with BJP thrice on earlier occasions, so we cannot really trust her. She might go back again. So that was, and Congress is almost disseminated. Congress is like nowhere there in these districts at least. So the voters are confused. So but somehow they are still sticking with Samajwadi Party. Like majorly in most of the constituencies, some like say in Sambal, Burke is the candidate, and in Muradabad it's Begum Nur Bano. Sorry, for Samajwadi Party it's ST Hassan, a local doctor. He was mayor of the city. He's a very respected man. So they are like they are sticking with Samajwadi Party and saying we are angry with Samajwadi Party, but A, we do not have other option, and B, for respective candidates. Like I met people, like I did not go to Sambal, but I met some people from Sambal, and they were like, we will stick with, we will vote for Bark Sahab because Bark Sahab is like good for the Muslims, good for the community, something like that. So that's what I found. Muslim votes divided. Not only Muslim votes, these like backward caste vote also. Even like say for Yadavs traditionally voted for Samajwadi Party, but there is a chunk of Yadavs who I feel are going to vote for BJP this time. Similarly for all backward caste. In fact, I found many Dalits also is speaking they may vote for. I don't know whether they will vote or not, or they voted or not, but they were like Modi will bring development, job, employment, so things like that. And like Congress,
Yeah,
in fact, at least is losing there.
yeah. I think that's sorry. I think a lot of people vote not for the party but actually for the candidate, and the reason and this is my experience as well, because they believe Delhi to hum jayenge nahi, so if the candidate is accessible or available to me, I can get things done. If I
No,
need
but
something
but
done, the candidate is there. So a lot of time, even if they don't agree with Samajwadi Party or Congress Party, but depending on who the local candidate is, they might vote for the candidate because of the connection. And this is interesting thing is even if you lose the even if the candidate loses the election, it doesn't matter much. The candidate is still influential. You can go to the police station, get your voice out, or do stuff. So I think that matters a lot. Who the candidate is and what relationship the voters have or can get with the candidate. I think that's my observation.
I think you are right generally, but this election, to an extent, things are different. As you know, this is one of the most polarized elections that we are going to have. So,
Right.
as this is a very polarized election, so I'll give you one example. Badeli, the candidate is one is the Congress candidate, and the BJP candidate has won from 1989 for the 6 consecutive times, and then he lost for the first time last time in 2009 to a Congress candidate. Okay, and now when I was there on the day of election in Bareilly. So when I
Mm.
was talking to these people, they would say this, like there were people. I wrote this in one of my stories from Bareilly that like there were people who said कि Congress MP, the Parveen Kumar Aaron, has done fairly well,
Mm.
but and in fact they were not very happy with BJP candidate. They said कि he is quite old and he was not up to expectations, but we are going to give him one chance because we want to see Modi as the PM. So this time, like say, I will give you in Muradabad. I went to, and this was very surprising for me. I just outside the station, I saw uh, Gandhi Ashram's Khadi Bhandar, and I'm a regular visitor to Khadi Bhandar in Delhi. So just out of curiosity, I went inside and I started talking to these people, and then I asked these people. Of course, the staff were, I won't say the full name. It's one of their names are in the story, but Sharma ji and Verma ji and Mishra ji, and they were like, इस बार तो मोदी जी के लिए वोट दें. So what you're saying about candidate is right generally, but because it's a very polarized election, and like Modi has for his vote, his core voters, he has become a symbol of development. So for them, it's like more about candidate. In this election, at times constituencies, it's more about Modi than anyone else. Like say in Firozabad, people were saying as of now SP is strong, but on 21st of April Modi is going to hold a rally in Firozabad, and so after that things might change because BJP candidate is not as strong, but then because Modi is coming there and he may garner some support. I think there are many people have joined us, so maybe we
Yeah.
can just.
So maybe we'll switch to Vinay, and Vinay just was there in Jharkhand for a long time, observing the election from a very close quarter. So, Vinay, do you want to talk about your experience there?
Yeah, sure. So I primarily was in the Khuti Lok Sabha constituency. I was assisting with the Aam Aadmi Party candidate Dayamani Barla from there in her campaign. So I was actually assisting in the campaign. So I can speak more about during my visit over there. Primarily like a heavily rural area with it's a reserve constituency for STs, and this primarily very heavy tribal area with the highest population of Adivasis being that of the Mundas. Munda is a tribe in Jharkhand, and so there were 14 candidates from the constituency. So the top contenders over there, like the incumbent was Kadiya Munda from BJP, who's also the deputy speaker of the Lok Sabha, and he's been the MP for almost last 35 years, 35 years, the incumbent over there. From Congress, this time they interestingly fielded a candidate called Kalicharan Munda, and his brother is an MLA from BJP, Neelkant Singh Munda. So there's that kind of dynamic. Then the other sort of top contenders were like from Jharkhand party called Eno Sekka. Uh, and from JVM, a gentleman called Basant Longa. But overall, what I would say is like actually contrary to what Riaz was saying. I mean, this what I observed, like at least in my visits, in particularly the rural areas, were like they were looking at the candidate purely from the candidate, or even from a symbol perspective, like Riaz was saying for previous elections, like Kamal Panja, Tir Dhanush, and then for Aam Aadmi Party now we are introducing a new symbol which is Jhadu. So so that was going on for basically like quite some time, and even like when people barely mentioned Modi, like within the rural areas, like there was hardly any mention of Modi at all. This so it, like could not observe any this any particular uh, wave within the rural area, at least from amongst the tribal, the Adivasi population for him at all. People did speak about Kadiya Munda, the BJP candidate. People spoke about like various individual candidates, but people spoke also about Jharkhand figures like Babulal Marandi and things like that. But no one spoke about Modi, or hardly anyone spoke about Modi. In fact, like interestingly, like I even heard uh, people who were educated talk about Kejriwal. They were pretty fascinated with his Delhi government, and what they did, and like Kejriwal has been also in the news, and sort of this him taking on the big guy has fascinated quite a few Adivasis over there. I don't know how that dynamic came into play, but that is something we observed. In the urban pockets, though, yes, there was a little bit of a Modi wave within the constituency, and people did speak about Modi, Vikas, and those sorts of things. And also, like they would question, for example, like Kejriwal's 49-day government, like why did he leave within 49 days? Those sorts of things. So, like they were more in line with like what sort of mainstream media has been portraying. So there was that dynamic within the urban pockets, but like also like over there you would observe like within the Muslim portions, like people not going with the BJP or anything, and like sort of trying to take an anti-BJP stand over there. There's hardly any Dalit or backward caste population over there. I mean, even in terms of the backward caste, they pretty much operate over there like a little bit of the forward caste, like there's the Mahatos and the Telis and the Sahus over there. So that population usually splits between BJP and Congress. So that dynamic is expected to have continued this time around as well. One of the big spenders in this election was the candidate from the Jharkhand party, this person called Keno Sekka. He's an MLA who's now contesting the MP election, and he's been in jail and things like that. Like he apparently spent almost like 20 crores on this campaign in this constituency alone. In fact, like uh, he allegedly also paid off like an extremist group, the PLFI, 5 crores in order to prevent people from campaigning. So the other issue in this entire area, is extremism. Like there are two factions: the Maoists, the MCC, as well as a splinter group called the PLFI, or the People's Liberation Front of India, which and PLFI pretty much has become like guns for hire. Like they pretty much this undertake extortion, random killings, and are operated by are led sort of by forward castes, with the cadre being Adivasis. So it, that dynamic also plays over there, and PLFI sort of heavily targeted the Dayamani Barla campaign and like two campaign cars were stopped. That was also in the news. So that was going on. Elsewhere, like in other constituencies of Jharkhand, like Hazaribagh, where like Yashwant Sinha's son is contesting. People apparently have been highly unimpressed because to like a lot of people, like he's been speaking about Gujarat and been totally out of touch with local issues. So there's no touch with local issues. He's just speaking about Gujarat and rallies and things like that. So like people are pretty unimpressed with him. In Ranchi, it seems like the Congress candidate is um, strong, pretty strong in Subodh Kant Mato, and it seems like he may retain his seat. But in terms of like strength showing, rally strength showing also, in fact, even the Aam Aadmi Party did reasonably well over there, like with a high turnout in terms of the rally. But overall, like in Jharkhand, it seems like it may split between BJP and BJP Congress and even like JMM, JVM, all these parties, uh, they may split. I don't think even the Aam Aadmi Party has that strong a chance across any of the constituencies in Jharkhand. This It'll be tough to win any constituencies across Jharkhand, but I think amongst the regional parties like Jharkhand, JVM, Congress, BJP. I don't think BJP will sweep the state either. This amongst like Mundas, which is one tribal pocket, the other tribal pocket with the Hos in the Chaipasa area. It doesn't seem like they'll do that well. In the more urban areas, they'll do well. Maybe
But o
Jamshedpur, they have a chance. Sorry.
overall, which party do you see Vinay doing well in Jharkhand? Overall, like number one
Uh,
party overall.
Probably BJP will be number one party, but I don't think by a large margin. I don't expect it to do well by a large
Okay.
margin, at least by what it seems like right now. Uh,
Followed by
the,
Jharkhand Mukti Morcha or like other parties.
it could be split between Congress and JMM. Is what
Okay.
I'm seeing.
At
And
least the districts. Yeah, go
sorry,
on.
go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
no, no,
go
even
ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, even JMM, sorry, even JVM, Babulal Marandi's party, uh,
Hmm.
has a reasonable chance of winning like 2 or 3 seats. So this like overall, it seems like it will be pretty split, and I don't think BJP will get like win across a lot of seats or come first by a large margin. Doesn't seem like that at the face of it
Oh,
right now.
okay.
In fact, even in Kooty, this district where
Vinay,
where
Vinay,
I was,
Vinay,
yes,
Vinay, sorry to cut you short, but like we'll come back to Jharkhand again. But we have many other.
no,
Uh,
sure,
I see many other people have joined us, so maybe we'll just talk to them briefly, maybe two minutes each, and then again we'll come back to you.
sure.
So Shantanu, I think you've joined first. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me, guys? Hello.
Shantanu, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your audio is very low. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Just check your audio. We'll come back to you in few minutes. Just check your audio. We'll come back to you in few minutes. Uh, all?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello.
Shantanu, can you
You're
hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah,
you're
we
very
can hear you,
soft.
but you are very soft. Just check your speakers. I'm muting you here. Check your
Can you hear me now?
mic. Just check your mic. Paul?
Yeah,
Yeah, can you hear us?
yeah. Can you hear me?
just introduce yourself briefly, and you have like tell us which state you are, your name, what do you do, your and like which state you are, and like if you have any questions or any observation, just in 2 minutes, but keep it short.
Sure. Okay. I'm in Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana right now,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Your good name, full name?
my name is Paul Malaki.
Okay, so tell us like your observation on the election or what you want to share.
So right now here, the big news from 2 3 days, the big news has been the uh, Telugu Desam Party and BJP alliance making and breaking. So
Yeah, yeah.
I've been trying to follow that. What has happened is basically Telugu Desam has much more better infrastructure in terms of in constituencies, and they are claiming more seats in their sharing from BJP. And BJP
Mm-hmm.
basically for trading, BJP only has to offer the Modi wave, but TDP is not buying it. TDP is saying, "What is this Modi wave? It looks good on paper, but I think on the ground it won't translate to us more than 3 to 4%." So
Mm-hmm.
they're not really buying that, and they're being very aggressive in their alliance. And I think largely it might be the case for the overall Modi wave as well, because BJP in their alliance sharing are all banking with their partners to that this will help them negotiate better terms. But at least in Andhra Pradesh, TDP does not really believe it, because most of the wave is only on media, and in rural areas I don't know how much that will translate into. He's doing a big rally in 2 days, so maybe that might change. So I
So,
also worked on Rachna Dingra's campaign in Bhopal, so if you have any questions about that I can answer.
okay, sorry to interrupt, but what do you do? Like, what are you by profession?
I work in health IT. I'm based in Boston, Cambridge, but I'm visiting Hyderabad for about 21 days now.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So, what you were saying, you want to share your experience? Just if you could elaborate.
No, if anybody has questions, I worked on Rachna Dingra's campaign for Aam Aadmi Party in Bhopal. So if
Okay, okay. So,
anyone has
I'm
questions
sure.
about that, I can answer.
Okay, sure. If you have question, we will surely. Shantanu, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Hitesh?
Shantanu, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Shantanu, your audio quality is very low. I mean, we can't hear you properly. It's just
Yeah,
little low.
Can you hear me now?
your audio is very low, Shantanu. I'm sorry, your audio is very low. You are waiting for like
No, that's fine.
we
That's
just
fine.
can't
Just
hear
carry
you.
on if my audio quality is very low.
So I'm muting you once again. We have
Paul, can you talk about Rachna Dhingra and the Bhopal campaign? I know in the assembly election they had, they were campaigning for nota option, but this parliament election they actually, the Bhopal activists they decided to contest the election, which is I think is wonderful, and she was the candidate from Aam Aadmi Party. So how was the experience on the ground, and how much response they were getting from people?
So Bhopal constituency comprises of Old Bhopal, which is majority it's Muslim dominated, and New Bhopal, and also it has some rural areas as well. So Rachna has decided to join. She got a ticket. There was some speculation. So she has been a activist in Bhopal for about 13 years. So she quit the campaign work and joined uh, this Lok Sabha elections, and they went to polls actually on 17th. And I was the part that I was involved in. Basically, the strategy was to do door-to-door campaigning, basically trying to visit as much of the constituency as possible, and from each mohalla or locality they wanted to get at least 5 6 volunteers who would go on the election day and help out and basically recruit cadre. And so they needed money for that. I think they estimated around 12 to 15 lakhs for that. And in US there was a team in Austin, Texas, which was working on that. Basically what they would do online fundraising. I think they raised the 12 lakh 15 lakh for her. And also once they go to a mohalla or they get numbers of volunteers, they have around 6,000 7,000 numbers by the end of the campaign in their database. and these people would call them the next week. Volunteers from the US would call them and follow up and make sure they go follow up on their volunteer commitments, and that's what's been happening. And they also do projections. And from speaking with Rachna and Satyu, their sense is that even if they don't win this, it's not about winning, but they felt it was a very good experience just reaching, getting uh, getting out and meeting a lot of new people, new areas which they didn't enter before, and also raising the Bhopal issue awareness. So in terms of just experience and building up infrastructure, it was a good experience for them.
Oh, Kashiba, you have any question?
Yeah. So is it a change of strategy for Bhopal activists to go involved in the get involved in the electoral politics? In making a difference, because it's been what 30 years now, and I think this is the first time they are getting into the election politics. So is that a change in strategy? Or?
In a way, the electoral issue is a new thing, but in another way, the one of the main strategies from the 30 years has been to keep the Bhopal issue in the limelight. That there has to be attention on it because people try to move on with it and it disappears very quickly. So in that way, it was a good strategic move that now it also got some national traction, and so in a way, it was a continuation. We could say even escalation of that strategy, and I think it worked well because it got a lot of attention. Even in the US, the issue got attention, which is important. And without Rachna doing this, all the media would in Bhopal would basically go on up, or election coverage. So they got the issue into election coverage, and she got coverage in Bhopal, a lot of local media coverage and all that. So I think that's helpful for the campaign in general. And this is irrespective of winning or losing. I mean, if she wins and goes to goes inside, then that's a different story altogether.
Kashiba, any question or should we?
You can go on. Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. We have Tariq with us, Tariq Anwar. He works with Daily Bhaskar, I guess. So, Tariq, can you hear us?
Yes, yes.
So, would you like to give some observation or some questions?
Uh, I just want to understand the election scenario in Delhi. What is most likely situation? As I felt, Muslim votes were badly divided between AAP and Congress. Is BJP's is BJP really going to take advantage of this situation? As many projections are giving them six seats, 5 seats. Is it true, and what's your observation on this particular issue?
Mm. Is this like you are asking us, or
Yes, yes. I just want to know.
in in
Yes, sir.
in my in my opinion, I'm the only one here besides you who is from Delhi. So in my opinion, vote divide amongst so-called secular votes, including Muslim votes, the vote divide is clearly going to help the BJP. And I've just come back from UP. I visited some of the districts of Western UP and the Farukhabad, that region, central UP, and I found same thing like Muradabad. BJP might win. I feel BJP might win because of vote divide between Congress and SP. Similarly, Bareilly BJP, I feel is clearly winning. Uh, in other districts as well, like say in Farukhabad, the constituency of Salman Khurshid, again the vote divide between Congress and BSP is going to BJP may have the advantage. As you said about, I'm not sure if BJP is going to get all the 7 seats. I doubt if they will get all the 7 seats, but the vote divide is clearly going to help. Like say
Yeah.
East Delhi constituency, the constituency of Sandeep Dixit, vote divide. There seem to be vote like this is the one constituency where we saw a maximum vote division, especially of Muslim votes. Muslims have traditionally voted for the Congress. In fact, in the last assembly elections, when everyone deserted Congress, Muslims were the only one of the large community who stayed with the Congress. This time in Okhla and in surrounding areas of Jamia Nagar, I saw Muslims vote largely divided
Yes.
between the Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party, and which may benefit.
Yes, after resigned as Delhi Chief Minister, he lost the support of a section of middle class, which was overcome. But at the same time, he gained support from a big section of Muslims, which might help him in future if Delhi elections again. Uh, uh, Two things I also want to share with you is that I recently visited Varanasi, and before 10th, I visited again Muzaffarnagar, in Kirana of Western Uttar Pradesh, and I went to Bagpat.
Your voice. I'm sorry, Tariq. I'm sorry to interrupt. Your voice is cracking. Can you go to your balcony or something? You seem to be in room and your voice is cracking.
Uh, it is clear now.
Yeah,
Hello.
yeah, it's clear. Yeah. Repeat your question.
I just want to share. Recently, I visited Varanasi, Muzaffarnagar, Kairana, and Bagpat district, the three districts of Western Uttar Pradesh, which was crucial in this election because of the uh, communal flare-up there. Uh, in Muzaffarnagar district, again, Muslims votes were divided badly into PSP and SP, and no doubt BJP is going to take advantage of that, and he's getting there.
Tariq, Tariq. I'm sorry to interrupt again. I'm sorry to interrupt again. Your voice is cracking, and we can't hear you properly. So I'm just putting you on mute. You check your connection, or maybe go to balcony or something. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Shantanu, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Shantanu?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can everyone hear him? Because your voice is very soft. I don't know the reason, but
Uh,
Yes, yes,
can everyone hear me?
Yeah,
yes,
can
yes.
everyone hear Shantanu?
yeah,
Yes,
it's
I can
soft,
hear
but
you.
it's okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah. So Shantanu, go on. You have some observation or some question?
Well,
Well, what I wanted to know was that it's a very one very interesting expectation that is kept out of
I'm
Muslims is that uh, that they have a very homogeneous voting pattern. I don't know, for some sort an expectation is kept out of them. I mean, I can understand that expectation coming out of because of the entire Modi wave, and that's a very clear expectation. But however, the outcome of that expectation to be just based on communal lines, I find that very I don't know, I don't find that realistic. So I think that obviously the pattern won't be homogeneous, but their voting would be more based on their local concerns rather than everything boiling down to the communal politics. That's one. And secondly, despite having this huge thing about stuff related to women issues, especially once we have had the 7th December rape case, finally when it has come down to elections, I think very little has been spoken, done, or policies being discussed on issues related to gender politics. I think these were two main. I mean, probably these were some things which I would like to know more about from you guys, but especially related to the expected homogeneous patterns of Muslim voting, and secondly related to gender politics.
Kashiba, you want to say something or should I begin? Kashibai? Yeah, Shantanu, if you give me your email ID, I can send you few links. If you follow two circles regularly, I recently visited the four districts and I wrote articles from one article from each of these districts: Badeli, Muradabad, and the other one, the Nagina. And I'm about to write for Farukabad. And I also wrote an article for DNA. So I can send you the link if you are interested to read. And which I found there was contrary to the general perception that Muslims vote in block and Hindus vote are divided. I found there this time in at least in Western UP, and similarly we saw in Delhi uh, uh, that Muslim votes are largely divided, while the uh, so-called Hindu votes, appeared consolidated. So I don't agree. This is a general notion we generally hear in media, but if you talk to any
No, no,
political scientist, they will say that.
I, I agree with you that the Muslim votes are divided, and what I'm only trying to highlight is that the reasons for division amongst the Muslim votes is not only about communal politics. I think there are much larger issues because of which their votes are divided. A lot, it has got a lot to do with the local voting patterns and everything. So I'm saying that the division is not only because of communal based politics, but it goes far beyond that. I agree with you that they are definitely not homogeneous and they are divided.
Uh, yes, to an extent, you're right. It's not communal politics. In fact, there is this misnomer that Muslim votes homogeneously against or for a particular party. See, if I'll give you a few examples. In Bengal, there was large shift of voters from uh, left to TMC. It was not just Muslims who shifted. Like even Hindus and other sections of the voters shifted. So similarly, Muslims shifted. Similarly, in UP, there was a time when BJP declined and Congress had already declined, and SP and BSP grew. So other communities started voting for them, and Muslims also started. Muslims in UP. Similarly, if you go to Tamil Nadu, Muslims there are divided between DMK and. So it's generally a misnomer, which I think certain political sections. Large shift of voters from uh, left to TMC. It was not
Yeah,
just Muslims who shifted. Like
yeah,
even
yeah.
Hindus and other sections of the voters shifted. So similarly, Muslims shifted. Similarly, in UP, there was a time when BJP declined and Congress had already declined, and SP and BSP grew. So other communities started voting for them, and Muslims also started. Muslims in UP. Similarly, if you go to Tamil Nadu,
Yeah,
so
I agree with you. Yeah.
so is that fine? Have I been able to answer you?
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
I exactly get that point. That was my observation, that it is much more local, and communal politics or communal based, voting is only a part of the
yeah, it's only
entire
one part of the story. It's
exactly,
only one part of the
exactly.
story.
But one more thing that I really was interested in was that corruption is something which has been part of Indian political debates for a very long time. So what made it special to AAP that they were actually able to sort of the capture the whole point on corruption, whereas other parties have failed to do it so far, in the sense that corruption has been part and parcel of Indian political debate for a very long time. But what is that special, probably what is that special thing for AAP that actually made them be able to capture on this particular point, whereas other parties have not been able to?
In my opinion, I think it's more of timing. It was more of a timing. For me, it was more of a timing. Commonwealth Games, like corruption of Commonwealth Games and 2G had just been highlighted, and they were there at that moment. That's when the movement started, and so it was successful. But it was not such a widespread movement. It was largely confined to Delhi and some urban centers. Like I've recently visited from. UP, and Vinay was just talking sometimes back about Jharkhand. So we don't see AAP very strong there. Similarly, Paul mentioned about Bhopal, how Rachna, and they are not really thinking whether they win or not. They are not really worried about it. What they are more worried, like they were happy that at least their issues were highlighted. The issue of Bhopal gas victims, and that was they were happy with that. They are not really. So AAP was more of an urban phenomenon restricted to Delhi, and even in that movement, it has now, like, it's kind of declined. It's now kind of declined a bit. I think the time for me it was more of a timing. They came at the right time, and they were like in Delhi, and there was so much of media attention to it, and so it got the people's attention.
Fair enough. Yeah, probably.
बस पॉलिटिक्स डिस्कस कर रहे हैं श्योर थैंक यू शांतनु
Thank you.
we are going back to Tariq. Tariq,
Yes, can you hear me well?
Yeah. Tariq joined.
Actually, I was saying a few days back, I visited
Live.
several districts in western Uttar Pradesh, like Muzaffarnagar, Shamli, Bagpat, the three major districts which were recently hit by floods there. I saw a very Muslim where the whole election took place there on secularism, quote unquote, secularism versus communalism line. I didn't see any development agenda there, and people are very proudly discussing it that we are going to vote for Samajwadi Party and Bahujan Samajwadi just because we were uprooted from our villages where we used to live for hundreds of years back. A disturbing kind of thing for me when people are saying that our democracy is being strengthened with each passing day, and people are talking about change. I see people there is also a quote unquote Modi wave everywhere. Hope is being sold. In all these circumstances, people are stick with old voting pattern like communalism and secularism. It was very disturbing for me. But when I visited Varanasi recently, 3 4 days back, I found a very surprising situation there. People of Varanasi, because that place has become a spotlight of, and it has got a lot of media attention because of triangular fight between Congress, BJP, and the Aam Aadmi Party. And you can see the division of votes among all these parties. People are still not clear whom they are going to vote for. um, I spoke to many people, including many professors of Banaras Hindu University, veteran journalists there, local political leaders, and common man. They are still not. They have not decided whom they have to do vote. On one hand, when people are talking in favor of Modi, they are also saying they are skeptical about Modi and Kejriwal as well. They are saying our local issues can't be resolved by these outsider leaders. And their their clear-cut indication was towards Ajay Rai of Congress because he is 5 times sitting MLA there, still sitting MLA there. So, but there one more thing. Uh, Varanasi, which is considered to be holy city of Hindus, uh, has a very interesting.
Tariq, your voice is cracking. Can you briefly sum up what you like? Briefly sum up because your voice is cracking, and there seems to be network problem. Just briefly say what you're saying.
Just in brief, I got very much satisfaction from Varanasi. There is nothing clear, and at the same time, there is no Modi wave, nothing else. All the Modi wave are in media in Delhi. Outside Delhi, I found no Modi wave. That's the
Oh, you
summary of all the.
so like you're saying Varanasi, you did not find any Modi wave as such.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. We'll get back to you. Thank you. Amin,
Thanks a lot.
No, I don't have any question. I was just listening the content. I mean the crux of this whole meeting. So who is going to
okay,
capture Delhi? Is it Modi
okay,
or
thank you.
someone else from that party?
Where are you from, by the way?
See, I am from Delhi and I am based in Western Delhi. So I am also quite worried
You're
about
from
the
Delhi.
division of secular vote in Delhi. Yeah.
Are you a
See,
student
I'm
or
not
you
from.
working?
No, I'm not from media fraternity. I'm from corporate.
Okay, so okay, you are from corporate. That's fine. Thank you. If you have any question, we'll get back to you. Thank you so much.
So I mean, say I have just one question. I mean, anyone who have idea about who is winning ETA?
ETA. Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
uh, it's difficult to say who is. It's difficult to say
Yeah.
who is winning, but SP is quite strong in ETA.
Yes, yes.
ETA, Manpuri, as you know, those are SP's stronghold. So, but difficult to show before elections are over. It's difficult to say unless the result is out. But SP and BJP, the main fight is between SP and BJP. So Vinay will.
because see I have been in the Press Club of India PSI. So I mean, there's a lot of I mean, this similarity in BSP in the western part of the country, UP. So they are gaining it. I mean, is it true or is it just a media hype or just a, I mean, just a
No,
media
no, no, no.
celebrity?
They because Modi campaign has continued for a long time. So of course it has trickled down, and there is some, like, among a section of Hindu voters, especially upper caste voters, there is that vote consolidation. But it's not that there is some, like, what I found is more than, of course there is so-called Modi wave to an extent, but more than that there is anti-incumbency. There is anger because Congress has been in power, and as you know, last couple of years we saw so many corruption issues. So there is so much of anger against the government. So that is getting, like, there is a sort of leadership vacuum which Modi or the BJP seems to be filling. Uh, Anyways,
Absolutely,
we
I
getting back.
agree. Absolutely, I
Yeah,
agree
you,
with
you
you.
have other question?
See, I
We'll
mean,
come
there's, I
back
mean,
to
there's a
you.
okay, sure,
I
sure. Thank
mean,
you.
we'll come back
Yeah,
to you.
thank.
There seems to be a network problem. Vinay bhai?
Yes,
Vinay bhai?
yes, yes.
Yeah, sorry to cut you short at that time. You want to say something?
Uh, no, yeah, just generally overall, Jharkhand will seems to be split mandate. This amongst Adivasis, particularly rural areas, there is really no Modi wave, and at least anything that I observed, they've been voting based on candidates, based on who they know, and the other aspect that comes into play is all the local leaders, people who sort of control certain sizable votes groups. Those are strategies usually employed. People also employ the strategy of going to the church. Church is very important in Jharkhand amongst Adivasis at least, and there are like three or four churches. So Roman Catholic, then German Evangelical, then this CNI is another church. I forget what it stands for. So like these churches also control a sizable number of votes, and
Oh,
usually if the bishop says something, like a lot of people listen to it. So uh, there's that sort of dynamic that plays over there. And in urban Jharkhand, you may see stronger BJP performance.
oh.
Minus Ranchi, I think Ranchi may be retained by Congress. Seems like at least right now, but not 100%.
Christians there.
Sorry.
What's the Christian percentage of Christian population there in Jharkhand?
I don't know the exact percentage, but Adivasis are generally split into roughly like 60 to 40. Is 60 Christian and then 40 non-Christian, or like roughly 50-50 Christian
And will
non-Christian
Giriraj
voters.
Singh's statement, yesterday's statement, will have an impact on the local politics there? Do you see any chance of politicization?
Sorry, what statement?
He yesterday said uh, that Muslims have those who are criticizing Modi will
Oh,
have no place in India.
yeah, yeah, no.
So
I mean, really speaking, like this rural Jharkhand particularly, this kind of national rhetoric is hardly making noise. What is really like again, really impacting over there are the local leaders and what they are saying. Like it's only urban areas over there, and also like amongst like certain educated population where like these sorts of statements or rhetoric is making any impact. Otherwise, they're like largely
Modi,
based on local issues.
okay. And last thing I want to know, Modi addressed, I think, 3 or 4 rallies there, big rallies there. Uh, um, what will the impact? What will the impact of this on the whole election procedure there?
Impact of what? Sorry, I can't quite hear you.
I'm saying Modi addressed, I think, 3 or 4 big rallies.
Correct,
Will
correct.
it have impact on the politics there, or it's basically JMM and Marandi family fight
No, no,
as usual?
it'll have impact. It'll have some impact. But primarily, this what was being observed, at least what I've observed over there during the first 2 phases of elections over there, is that it was local issues that were playing a big part, local candidates playing a big part, uh, how they performed, uh, local leaders underneath the individual Lok Sabha constituencies, and what kind of votes they can mobilize, that is playing, making an impact. And this BJP, in my opinion, will emerge as the largest party in Jharkhand, but I don't think by a large margin. Like there might be like 3 or 4 seats difference between them and
It's
second
12
phase,
o'clock.
that sort of thing.
So,
At this
Kashif bhai,
point, I want to, introduce Sabahat Bhai. He's originally from Pakistan, now based in America, and considering that a lot of Indians will be moving to Pakistan after election, I think it's a good opportunity to talk to him, find out how much room they have available. Can they accommodate us?
बोलो हमारे लिए
But on a
इंडियन
serious note, I think you want to talk about
इलेक्शन के
what are
बाद
the
चीजें
parallels
बदलेंगी.
between Aam Aadmi Party and Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf of Imran Khan, and see if there are any similarities between the two movements.
Just ये one of the experiments है कि
Good
live
morning.
करके देखते हैं
Is my
ये
voice
live है
through
Yeah,
live
we
okay?
can hear you.
live देखते
So,
कितना उससे
good morning. Yes, I was just saying that there are 2 or 3 things we want to talk about. Would be there is, of course, both in Pakistan and amongst Pakistani Americans, we, just like Indian Americans, follow the Indian elections rather closely. And one factor again is always sometimes we are even more worried than people on the ground, which is always true of expats. But we have been following AAP as a parallel to PTI for quite a
और
while. Just to, like often as a Karachiites, we followed the Majlis Ittihad Muslimin in Hyderabad as a parallel to the MQM as well. But the factor again becomes whether the system itself will let a movement like the PTI or the AAP to make the changes that they desire. And my personally, and some of us, we've always had that critique, both of the PTI and the Anna movement and of AAP, that often they are talking about symptomatic solutions, not looking deep enough in terms of what are the causes of the, corruption. To me and to a lot of us, especially in Pakistan, because corruption has always been worse than India, we've come to the conclusion that it's a systemic structural issue. And when that might sound like a very vague discussion, but when you get into it, just as the AAP found in Delhi, that when they get into power, there is so much structural and systemic pushback that it's very difficult for them to implement even the things that they said they will implement. So now that experiment is going on in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, or as we used to call it, Sarhad or frontier in Pakistan, and then of course the AAP got that brief moment in Delhi. So in both cases, I think they are starting to, as we say in Urdu, "Aante tel ka bhao pata lag raha hai." They're starting to realize what they are up against. And to me, always it's been about watching whether they are able to transform their aspiration about corruption and justice into serious policy and, more importantly, legislative issues, right? Are they going to be able to change and get rid of the causes of corruption? To me, it's very fundamentally, will they change salaries for police? Will they be able to do that? And you saw, and police in Delhi became specifically the first problem, right? They became the issue of who controls the police. That is something we have faced in Karachi. As Karachiites, our complaint has always been that the police is not native, therefore it doesn't. So all of that becomes an issue, and of course, as Pakistani Americans, as of course just American Muslims who have been worried about what Modi will have to do, or what effect Modi might have about Indian Muslims, and how that plays out into our activism here, there. So overall, it's been a very interesting journey following through, and I was just curious to learn. Even yesterday, I was talking to a fellow Pakistani American, and his question was, is it really possible? Will Modi be able to take control? And my mind goes back to just before the BJP's first government, where I was going around, I was visiting Lucknow, my relatives are still in that area. And the question I was asking people is India ready for a BJP government? Because often it's about breaking the ice. And personally, I feel the BJP, when they took that very small time period they had in the beginning, just had a very short government. I think it was about them thinking strategically that we have to get into that, get people used to the idea of a BJP government. So I think the BJP has always been very strategic in that regard, and the rest of us are not. I mean, people outside that whole discussion, and that's actually my critique of both the PTI and the AAP. They seem to be very well meaning and sincere and want to make difference in terms of justice and corruption and all of that, but they're not strategic enough. They're not thinking deep enough to see if they can solve the problems. But as an outsider, or as someone who still feels he has a vested interest in particularly the Indian Muslim community, I think the net effect of the AAP and of the PTI is to help improve politics overall. They might not be as successful, but their very presence might force and push the other parties and other people in the discussion to start having to deliver. So in conclusion, that's kind of where my hope is for the AAP or the PTI. And as you might have guessed, I'm not a supporter of either. I've always had that very strong feeling, and also a fear of the PTI being rather right of center and being dominated by born-again Muslims. That's always been an issue. So let us see. I mean, it's good to see elections happen. It's good to see evolution. And again, the other thing I'm very curious about is what kind of Indian Muslim leadership comes out of this process. Are we going to have Indian Muslim leaders within AAP, within this, within that, and how that works? I think I'll stop here. If there are any questions or discussion, I can follow up. Ji.
Yeah, thank you, Sawad bhai. I think that's very interesting. So the question about Indian Muslim leadership, I think it's going to take a long time to discuss that, and hopefully maybe in one of the programs we can discuss Indian Muslim leadership. So in brief, the problem with Indian Muslim leadership is that it's not a grassroots movement that generates Indian Muslim leadership. The problem is it usually comes from the top. So people are dropped from the top. So either they're coming from a political party, Salman Khurshid, one such example, or they come from a religious or business class, not business as much, but more like religious, like for example Badruddin Ajmal. So in a way they are. Badruddin Ajmal is of course more connected with the ground than say Salman Khurshid, but like Salman Khurshid, Muslims don't see him as their leader. Same thing with Javed Akhtar. He's a liberal voice, but Muslims don't think of him as their leader. So that's an issue. The reason we don't have Muslim leadership is that we don't have a movement within Muslims that would generate that kind of leadership. Even though we have organizations like Jamaat Islami Hind or Jamiat Ulama Hind, but they are a religious organization with their own religious viewpoint that doesn't it's not really conducive to a leadership that the community, if we can say that they are a community, can deserve. And there have been some examples, and I think the best leadership that we can hope to emerge will be some sort of a regional leadership among Muslims, and not a national leadership. And I think that will be the right approach. I think.
How do you see MIM in this discussion? Asaduddin, do you think he's an organic leader? Or?
Of course, not an organic leader, as we all know, but he definitely has an influence among the community because of the position, and I'm not sure how much. And actually, a big section of Muslims in Hyderabad or Andhra Pradesh, I think, identifies with him, and I think you are in a better position to answer that. Maybe you can talk from your perspective, what you see, MIM and Asad Owaisi or Akbar Owaisi.
I mean, maybe if Mohammed Ismail is still here, he can also. I think he left, but I mean, my take is that he's very popular in his constituency. People identify with his whole family. But apart from, so one thing is having grassroots popularity, and the second is, there's of course there's criticisms of him. There's the other party, which say that MIM is doing deals with the Congress and so on. But regardless, he's someone who's seen as a, the Badshah, the leader in a lot of Muslim communities, and he has a lot of like young youth popularity in the city. Because I think there's a lack of also role models or leaders people can look up to, who can take aggressive stances or be prominent and be articulate. And I think Asaduddin definitely fills that for the youth especially.
Kashif bhai?
Right. If I may sort of interject here, one model of leadership, I know it gets a little academic here, is one that, for example, in the US, there is an organization called NALEO, which is the National Association of Latino elected officials, which is sort of a platform on which people get together with one contact. So they're all Hispanic, but they could be Democrats, Republicans.
Where are you, Ismail?
And various other places. So that kind of, cross-party leadership where, or a conference where people
hang out karna tha na?
In that context can often be useful, and that way it also liberates people to be able to participate in whatever movement they feel strongly about, whether it is the AAP, Congress, etc. So that's, it's interesting here amongst American Muslims as well, that we need to have, some sort of platform that looks for the concerns of the community across political and other divides.
One thing, and I want to know why this happens. Kashi was talking about grassroots leadership. Like he gave the instance of Badruddin Ajmal and Salman Khurshid. But except Salman Khurshid, there are so many leaders who come from a very who can actually be grassroots leader. Like we had Ali Ashraf Fatmi, we had Shakil Ahmed. But what happened to them? I still fail to understand. After getting power, after stepping into the parliament, they just forget what's their response, what the expectation people had with them.
Can someone wants
Yeah,
to come in? Can someone wants to come in? Kashi bhai?
no moderator.
Oh, okay. So, uh, Tariq bhai, you're right. I don't know how to put it, but yes, Muslim leaders largely have failed the community, so to say. The reason, I think one reason is that whatever names you took, Ashraf Ali, Fatmi, and all, they are not, they did not have their base as a strong of their own. Most of these leaders came with those Bahubali tag, or they had the support of some Bahubali. Fatmi, you are saying, had the support, as we know of. He won with the support of Shahabuddin.
Shah-
It's not that they were very strong. He became a charity minister only simply because Shahabuddin wanted. He wanted to start university, and so he thought he should have a man there in HRD. So Muslim leaders either came with that kind of background, Bahubali background, or people like, say, people who were clergy, or another small section is this elite like Salman Khurshid. So they never really, none of the leader really had the uh, they really represented Muslim community, except maybe, say, people like Asaduddin Owaisi. Whether we like them or not, people like Asaduddin Owaisi, people like Badruddin Ajmal of Assam, these are the
You call
leaders who really represented.
Owaisi, he will directly pick up your phone. But call Ashraf Ali Fatmi, he is not MP these days, but he will never pick up your phone, unfortunately. His
No, no, no,
secretary will
but
pick up.
no, no,
This
that's for maybe, that's maybe for you and me from sitting in Delhi and calling. But of course, to his people, he's very popular among his people. I'm sure he reaches out to his people in his own ways. Anyway, we have Ismail, I think. And we have only 10 minutes, so we'll wrap up in 10 minutes. Ismail has just joined. Ismail is from Hyderabad. He's our Hyderabad correspondent, and he recently went to Tamil Nadu. Ismail, can you hear us? Ismail, can you hear us? Ismail, can you hear us? I think we can't hear him. So,
I think he's
and
muted
Vinay
I
bhai,
from.
I would love to hear Mudassir, as I can see him there, and since I am
Mudassir, you want
outside
to say something?
Bihar, so please throw some light on Bihar politics. How is
Mudassir,
this
you want to say
emerging?
something? Uh, we don't seem to have him. Mudassir. Vinay bhai, you want to wrap up? You want to say something?
No, I don't have anything else to say. This just I think it's largely this the UP, I think, will be pretty much like pretty big deciding factor this time. So there are mixed reports. I mean, you've given some reports, like there's some other media that's saying like BSP will do well, or BSP is the only threat to BJP. So like it's, I don't know what to make of these things. So I feel like UP is pretty large, and if BJP has to cross 200, then they have to win at least 40 out of 81 in UP. So yeah, I feel that's one big area, and if they can turn around, Bihar is another area where, like, if they can turn it around, uh, or will JDU retain uh, whatever they had? They'll definitely go down, JDU, but how much, we don't know. So those are two key areas I feel we have to see.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Vinay. I think it all boils down to UP, and depending on how UP, how many seats UP returns for BJP, I think, then, there'll be chance for BJP making a government or not. And I think, I mean, 3 weeks ago perspective was that, BJP is not getting 40 seats in UP, but I don't know if that has changed. Riaz can enlighten us on that. And I think there is some change since last time I was visiting. But I don't know, can it translate into 30, 40 seats? I think it's not going to be easy even with all the permutations. Especially considering that Muslim vote, as they say, is not splitting. It's surprising, but I think most of the a lot of Muslims are still voting for Samajwadi Party, which means that there's not much confusion that as people thought there will be Muslims will be out of option. That means division of Muslim votes, and that means it's going to benefit BJP. But I think, as Riaz mentioned at the beginning of this program, that there seems to be some consolidation of Hindu votes, so that might have an effect on how UP behaves. So maybe Riaz wants to talk about that a little bit. Riaz?
I think we should wrap up now. Mudassir, are you there? I think we should wrap up now.
Yeah, okay.
Bye, guys.
So are we going to have another of these? I think this was useful just to get started, but I think if we do it maybe in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it'll be helpful as well, so we can get an update.
Yeah, I think we should do it weekly till the election. After that, maybe we'll continue it, but we'll change it to maybe once every 2 weeks. But yeah, we'll have another one next week.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Julie.
All right, thank you everybody for participating, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.